Hello viewers, my name is Adam,
And I'm Aaron.
and this is Sticky Media Productions. I think now is the time that we finally discuss what is considerably probably one of the most, arguably one of the best anime cartoons.
One of the greatest anime cartoons. Of course, we're talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
So Avatar: The Last Airbender lasted 3 seasons, 61 episodes during its run on Nickelodeon. So what's it all about? What is Avatar: The Last Airbender?
So basically, this series takes place in an alternate version of Earth, in which the 4 great nations, modeled after the primordial elements of Earth, air, fire, and water. And of course, our titular protagonist, a young boy who hails from the air nomads or the air nation, a boy by the name of Aang, is thrust into this great journey as he finds out that he is the next in line of a great succession of heroes known as the Avatar.
But our series begins 100 years after a huge calamity overtakes the world, in which the Fire Nation is basically starting a conquest to take over the other 4 nations.
No, what happens is Aang tries to leave the world behind and leave his title behind and run out on his own. But unfortunately, he gets stuck in an iceberg and he is frozen in this place for hundreds of years, or at least 100 years.
100 years. He's 12 he's 12 years old in the story.
And he's still 12 by the time he breaks out.
Here we are. We are basically awakened to the world that's so rich with world building.
Oh wow!
Already.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Where I wouldn't want to say completely it's an alternate world from what we know.
I mean, at one part it kind of is, because many of the nations here, this is heavily inspired and modeled off of specifically Asian nations and Asian communities. There are no real other cultures that factor into this. So anyone who's like black, white, or comes from those
There's colored individuals.
There are definitely
other
color, but it's mostly an Asian based show.
Yes, and from the 4 nations, where them being now named after the 4 natural elements, you come people who are able to wield these abilities at will, known as benders.
In which these individuals, because they're naturally born with this affinity for one particular kind of element, and they can use it and wield it as they may. But the character of the Avatar is an individual who could bend all 4 elements.
Yes, and with this whole world where it's using elemental beings, they really drive home more with the Asian-inspired elements when it comes to a lot of the show's philosophies, and also a lot of the directions of which they wanted to help explain some of the more fantastical elements that surrounds them. Because we also, not only with people who are wielding a lot of elements known as benders, you also have creatures that's like very hodgepodge of chimera elements.
You got what's it like?
Platypus bears.
Yeah, platypus bears. Like there's multiple
right.
versions of bears, like platypus bears. You have ducks that are also like turtles.
And turtle ducks.
Yeah, turtle ducks. Like
they really do believe it. They just mishmash the names of certain known animals that we know, and they create something new entirely. Ish. And you also, it comes with the Asian inspired elements, you also bring in that sense of spirituality, which also from there, like, it's something that's very in tune with also the main character of being an avatar. But here is it also, with that in mind, it helps out branch off the type of appeal that this show tends to have, in which if you have a show that's meant for younger audiences, but it becomes a lot more for a wider audience. And it's mainly due to those themes where they tackle, because it's a war, you have totalitarianism, genocide, which we discussed with the background of the main character. It also is something that you also have with much more subtler but more impactful themes of identity, which factors into how they deal with characters of feminism, misogyny, or that type of very psychological abuse drama that we all from another cartoon show that we discuss on our channel from Steven Universe. So a lot of that stuff is still very heavily implied and expressed throughout this series as well. Things that makes Avatar more than something like the generic chosen one storyline is due to its characters.
Yeah, and just going back on that whole chosen one aspect, yeah, sure, Aang was born the Avatar, but Aang's ascension to that title, that status, is one that he had to grow into. Yeah, he was born with this ability to bend the other four elements, but he's also, because of being the Avatar, is considered a bridge between the physical world and the spiritual realm. Well, that's a lot to put on the shoulders of a 12-year-old boy.
It's a lot to deal with, but you'll see as the series goes on that he becomes more assured of himself, and knowing the fact that one of the most best word of advice that he is given to him is that it's not about you. And with Aang, a good parallel from his story is, of course, someone who is at least introduced as an antagonistic figure, and that is Zuko, who is fan favorite.
I love Zuko. As a matter of fact, he's probably one of my favorite characters of all time, specifically because of the work they did with his character development. Yeah, his main drive was to go after Aang and to bring him in as his only form of regaining some form of honor in the eyes of his father and his people.
Mm-hmm.
Wow! And then he transitions into not only a person that's supposed to be a antagonist against him, but a trusted ally.
It's really goes back to the concept of finding your own self-worth. Is really resonant, and something of a storyline who parallels another animated character that precedes him with the character of Vegeta from the Dragon Ball Z series.
I think the only thing was separating these two characters is that one character actually had another mentor figure to help him move along and grow,
yeah.
and the other one was pretty much on his own.
But there's no show without a leading lady. And essentially,
this show had multiple ladies. It wasn't just one, but I know where you're going to go to.
The lady, yeah, because this show, like, female characters on this show is so on point. But one in particular, and essentially the person who starts to show off, is Katara. Katara is a person who had a lot thrown upon her at a young age, who in fact who has the most similar storyline with Zuko as far as hardships and also character trajectory.
Yeah, we're talking about an individual who at the beginning of the series is very much the head of the household aside from her brother, or at least in her village, because for one part their father is off fighting war with the Fire Nation, so he's not in the picture as much as he should be. And then on the other side, their mother, who should be the one here also taking care of them, is gone.
Yes. And for Katara to take on such a responsibility of show so much maturity speaks a lot about certain realities that that human beings also find themselves in, where a matriarch of a household or a community is the one that brings people up together.
Very much so. And then to also show that this young lady who at first was a novice in her craft blossoms into a true master and is essential to what would effectively be called Team Avatar going forward.
But we can't talk about Katara without her brother Sokka, someone who I'll say who wears his misogynistic insecurities on his sleeves, but is continuously beaten down and checked throughout the series in order for him to become so much of a well-renowned figure in leadership and strategy, and something who becomes essentially the heart of Team Avatar itself. He's essentially more of the comedic relief, but it shows so much of his character, and especially how this comedic relief is also something of a way of him dealing with a lot of situations. It's something. The writers knew what they were doing. It becomes a balancing tone.
I just love Sokka. I love almost everybody. I love everybody on the show. Everybody on the show was amazing. I love them.
And it's unfortunate that we can't discuss all of them because it would be a whole different situation. But the mere fact that this is an action adventure show where you got heroes and villains, the Fire Nation, which are the main antagonistic group, I would say it could be easily written off as just like very Nazi-like figures. But you have major players in the more the villain route from Azula, who is introduced in season 2, who is Zuko's sister, comes out as a very standout and scene-stealing antagonist.
Oh yeah, almost every time I was like, I want more Azula. I really do. And she always delivers. Whenever Azula is on the scene, you just stop. You just admire her. And then you also feel, as the series go on, you feel sorry for her.
In fact, in a lot of ways, Azula is essentially more of the main antagonist in the series once she's appeared than who is essentially is the big bad, who is Azula and Zuko's father, the Fire Lord. Someone who I'll say who is more cut into cheek is a legit bad guy who has no redeeming qualities whatsoever.
Absolutely none. There is no excuse for why he does the things he do, aside from the mere fact is that he can do them.
He's a character who has no nuance, which is quite fun because you have a voice actor, Mark Hamill, who's doing such a phenomenal job at it, but you're only so much that a voice actor of his caliber can do when the villain, the main big bad, is given so little.
Exactly. Yeah, you hardly get to see Ozai. He makes hardly no. I think you really can count on maybe one hand how many appearances he had in the show.
But it's a lot of the cases. A lot of the characters who do have this limited screen time, who makes a good impression, that it makes essentially all the characters of the show so well rounded. With so many characters to balance out and such a rich story, I'm happy to say that the production is what of this show lives up to the scope of what this show is telling.
Now let's go back to that original statement that people confuse Avatar with being an anime, and there's a good reason why. When people think anime, a lot of us think high quality animation, especially when you deal with action-based anime series such as Dragon Ball Z or Full Metal Alchemist. Well, they were not at all slouching when they created this series. Almost every episode is beautifully animated and given so much life and brilliance that it almost brings a tear to your eye, especially when you see benders working with their favorite or with their specific elements. The way they animate that is incredible, and it goes back to into the how they design these special art styles, because each element is modeled after a specific martial arts.
And when we say anime, is more like it's Japanese anime influence, because this show, I think, is the one that really calls a question what is considered anime. But the thing is, people tend to forget that anime is translated as cartoon over there in Japan.
Exactly.
And also, here's something that most people probably won't recognize, that majority of Western animation is produced in America, but is actually animated in South Korean production houses.
Exactly.
And from great animation, from the fight scenes. One other notable thing that I also wanted to point out is how well the music is, and which the music helps bring out wears its Asian influences on his sleeves. The composers Jeremy Zuckerman and his whole track team are able to create full-on soundtracks and scores that help elevate the material than more than just a cartoon show, but essentially each 22 to 24 minutes of each season is essentially more like a little mini movie. We're not going to even mention whatever happened in that 2010 live action movie.
It don't exist. We don't care about it.
Netflix is going to try their hand at trying to do
Hopefully.
live action. I'm not like keep my hopes up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you go wrong with essentially a show which only has like 1 to 3 filler episodes?
And those filler episodes did not feel wasted at all.
No, you essentially have a show that is dang near flawless, and is the reason why I'm so happy, and Aaron is so glad that we'll be granting Avatar: The Last Airbender with our highest rating of epic. My name is Adam,
And I'm Aaron.
and this has been a Seeking Media production.
Guys, as always, if you like this review and any other videos we do, please like, share, and comment. And also, please hit that bell down there at the bottom if you want more content coming to you.
Be sure to be sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and so you can check us out, communicate with us. We're out there.
See you guys.